Growing up, I had very creative parents. My dad was a photographer and woodworker. I took a darkroom class in high school. That was pre-Photoshop days, and the darkroom was your Photoshop. Always out bouldering and climbing with friends. This problem called bowling balls. I heard a super loud pop, so couldn't climb. I just okay, well, I want to still go out. I'm gonna just throw myself into photography. Gear distributor. This was Liberty Mountain. They offered me a full-time position as the climbing buyer. I was in charge of the catalogs. Designing that, I did a lot of the product photography. I did all the action photography as well. This is from Yosemite. It's a reflection of El Cap in the Merced River. She was in one of the first all-female punk bands, toured with Fugazi and toured all around the world. There was something about the movement and pose. It was just so strong and powerful, yet beautiful. Zion has some of the most amazing ice in the world, I think. This is on Mont Blanc, the French Alps. This was sunrise on the mountain. I'm trying to document every aspect from start to finish. Portraits are so important to telling a full story.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Photo Talk Show. This is part 2 with Nikki Smith, where we get to have a slideshow with the artist herself. In case you missed part 1, go back to the previous episode where you can hear all about Nikki's creative journey as a photographer. Okay, let's look at some photos. Are you ready, Nikki?
Yes, I've got a handful of images. It's hard after 20 plus years of photography. I feel like every time I take a photo, I hate everything I've already taken, so it's kind of hard to pick, but these are some of the ones that really stand out. This is from Yosemite. It's a reflection of El Cap in the Merced River, and I just loved the moss showing through. It just, I don't know, it comes across very kind of a painting from the Renaissance or something. Like it's just so interesting with that green moss shining through. And it's just been one of my favorites. It's actually never... Magazine's never published it. I was always surprised. I think it was just a rest day, and like I often on rest days on trips like to just go down to a river or go to, an interesting, beautiful viewpoint or hike. Just so happened to catch this perfect spot. This is Amy Pickering. She's a climber, lives in the Gunks, is partners with Russ Clune, an amazing climber, amazing musician, singer, amazing character, personality.
And how did her personality, because obviously this is like a very stylistic shot, so how did knowing what you know about her sort of inform how you set the shot up?
She almost exclusively seems to wear black, and I don't know, I really like kind of playing that up. She's in all black with a black backdrop and just really made everything kind of fade away, other than just that facial expression in her hair that just really stood out. And I don't know, there was just so much charisma and personality. I didn't really have to direct or do anything. She just pulled out. There was just so much character.
Because this looks like it could be the cover of a solo punk album.
Yeah.
I see that. Wait, so is this in a studio?
So this was, I think, one of the very first American Alpine Club Kragen Classics, like in 2007 or 2008. It was in the basement of the place they were holding it, and I just set up a studio down there, and there were a lot of prominent climbers there. Like I used to do that a lot, where I'd go to gatherings and events, and I would set up a backdrop and just throughout the day grab people and bring them over to my setup, and I would usually have a white backdrop and a black backdrop, and I would try to get photos of people on each.
Yeah, and you have a really amazing book. It's like a scrapbook, photo book sort of thing, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's like a leather-bound book with like handmade art paper in there that I've put portraits in there, and I kind of just use it when I'm going someplace and, not everyone knows who I am as a photographer. People can be very self-conscious getting their portrait taken, but I pull out that book and let people flip through, and they see, photos of their friends and, other really famous climbers, and they get an idea of my style. and what I'm doing, and that opens up a lot of doors for me, I find, at those events.
Yeah, having that
For,
to show somebody who's not used to being photographed, it seems like that's a great idea. Just that, like these are the types of images I'm taking, and sort of put people at ease before they get in front of the camera.
this was at Mount Woodson in California. Her name's Catherine, and just met her that day. We were bouldering together, and then one of her friends did this short little finger crack thing right next to there, and she was coiling the rope, and I don't know, just there was something about the movement and pose and her stare at me. It was just so strong and powerful yet beautiful. And it's just one of my favorite portraits.
Yeah, her look is very striking. Her facial expression almost doesn't match the context of what she's doing, and that's kind of what makes me want to look at it more. Because I think about all the coiling ropes images that I've shot or that I've seen, and it's like colorful, people are happy, and it's, like kind of energetic. And then this is kind of like a different, different take on that moment that's usually portrayed as happy, high energy.
I don't know, I see it less like I've done a lot of those rope coiling shots and the kind of more lifestyle. To me, the way she's engaging with the camera, and that it's more of a portrait where she happens to be coiling a rope rather than a rope coiling shot. Yeah, this is Angela Van Weimerish on the Zycycle, just outside of Zion National Park in Utah. This Zion has some of the most amazing ice in the world, I think. Something so amazing to me and beautiful about having these turquoise ice flows right next to and in the middle of these amazing, orange and brown sandstone cliffs. Some of these climbs are 600 feet long, and this climb, just the twists and turns of the canyon and the contrasts of colors and everything, it's just so beautiful and striking. For this one, I rigged up a Tyrolean traverse across the canyon, and so I was suspended. Like, this canyon is probably around 100 feet wide or so, and from where I was hanging, it was about a 300-foot drop, and I traversed into the middle of the Tyrolean traverse, which, if you're not familiar with what a Tyrolean is, it's basically a line going horizontally across the canyon, and I got into the middle of that, and then I rigged a second rope where I lowered down probably another 30 feet into the center of the canyon and was just dangling in space to...
Wow. Because I had no idea that you were like suspended in the middle of this canyon for this shot.
Yeah, it was one of the scarier, more uncomfortable positions. I was in that spot hanging for probably 4 hours because I photographed Angela leading this as two pitches, and then I photographed her partner Scott doing it as well. And I think I photographed him. I think he did it in one long mega pitch, and then he soloed it. And so and then another friend did it in between as well. So I was just hanging out there all day long.
Your legs had to be numb.
Definitely. I use a bosun's chair or big wall chair. And so that really helps.
Wow.
This is on Mont Blanc in the French Alps, in Chamonix on the Tres Monts route. We spent the night at the Cosmiques hut, and then this was sunrise on the mountain.
Wow.
It's just, I don't know, I just always love, I don't do a lot of mountaineering. It's not my favorite thing. It's just a lot of hiking in no fall zone. But there is something magical about being above the cloud line and seeing the sunrise or sunset in the shadow of the mountain going across
the
the
way that
skyline.
light swoop and the shadow swoops is like mind-boggling.
Yeah, I know you've done some of that. And
Well, did you like this one? I'm assuming you did not scout this location beforehand. Like this was
No.
on the fly.
No, I just made sure I was in the lead team, so those three there were 5 of us all together, and myself and another friend. Like I always, like I'll do this for other climbing photography too. If it's multi-pitch, I'll just be on a team in front, and either I'll lead and then get in the spot and lower back down, or if my partner is fast and strong climber, then I'll just follow and take photos whenever things look good, or just hang out in the spot. And so I saw that it was getting close to sunrise, and then just kind of tried to sprint as quickly as I could up ahead to get ahead of them and try to find the spot that I wanted for the sunrise.
Wow. Well, it worked.
Oh, thank you.
You nailed it.
This one was from Maple Canyon. Last season, we had probably the best season in 20 years in Maple Canyon. Like everyone knows, Maple climbing is this amazing sport climbing area with super close bolts, but when the conditions are right, which is often once every 3 or 4 years, the ice there has some of the highest concentrations in probably like a 2 square mile area of steep ice of anywhere in the US. And it's just like 20 feet apart, one after another, water ice 5s and 6s. And then there's a lot of easier stuff as well, but like you can belay from your car on some of them, and you can do 10, 15 routes without hardly moving more than a quarter mile.
I want to see that put against like a summer Maple Canyon sport climbing shot to see the side by side difference, because Maple Canyon's like pretty high elevation, correct? And so
it's
like
around 7,000 feet, I think.
Yeah, so like it's 7,000 feet above sea level, and so you're kind of climbing there in warmer months, and so people are there in like, sports bras and tank tops and shorts and shirtless, doing really gymnastic climbing, and then it's also the place where you can do this. Like it's a cool like dichotomy for sure.
Yeah, and the bolts are super close there in the summer, and it's like just really chill, fun climbing. And in the winter, the routes are longer, harder, steeper, and scarier than they look from the ground. And it's a serious place. Like it completely changes in the winter, and it's not like a gimme type climbing location the way it is in the summer. It's like real deal
Full
hard,
alpine.
scary climbing.
Yeah.
So this is a climb I've been trying to catch for 15 to 20 years. It was
Holy
in the, I
moly.
think, late 90s, early 2000s. There was a retailer, kind of like Backcountry is now, called Mountain Gear. They had a catalog that there was a photo of this climb. It's near Moab, in between Moab and Indian Creek. And it's this ice climb that flows out of this hole in this amphitheater. And it's just super unique, and finally caught it when it was in. It's like it's about a 3-mile approach or so, and a lot of muddy road driving to get out there. And so it's hard to know when it's in. And I'd seen amazing photos of it from the bottom, and I definitely took those, but I wanted to do something different, and so I got up inside the cave, and then it comes out onto the top of the plateau outside of that cave, and photographed down through that, and just
So
love the
did you
framing of the
climb?
rock.
Yeah, did you climb up through the hole to access, or were you
I
able
did.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
didn't know, like, you saw it from the bottom, and you obviously saw the ice flow coming through, but you didn't know that you would get a shot like this until you actually went up there and could look back down.
I kind of envisioned this a long time ago, and it was one of those, like we talked in the last episode about, you see a photo and like, I have to go there and I want to get a similar shot. But then for years I've been like, what else could I do different than that? And so I'd envisioned this photo for a long time. I didn't know exactly what it would look like, but I envisioned being in this spot. And so I took some photos of him and another friend from the ground, and then I climbed it. And once I got up in there and looked down, I'm like, oh yeah, this is it.
Yeah, that's wild. You were waiting for how long for the ice to come in? Because that's another thing I think that we need to point out to anybody listening, that we've talked about with outdoor and adventure photography, how, you have to scout and see where the light's going to be to really get standout images. Often you have to return to places and make sure, get good timing with the light and the weather. And then with ice climbing, you're adding this whole other level, this whole other layer that has to be right, where the ice has to actually come in a certain way. So how did you know that it was there? Like, you had seen, I guess it's an established ice climb. So you've been
Yeah, so
waiting for
I
it.
I wrote the guidebook to ice climbing in Utah, and so I had information about it, but I had never. I think I only knew of two people who had ever actually climbed it, and I have friends in the Moab area who ice climb, and so I'd check in with them, and finally someone posted online and messaged me and like, hey, I went out and it's in, like, get after it. And so I had just gotten back from a climb. I was actually in Maple, and some friends messaged me and on the drive back, and so I reached out to a couple people and found out some friends were going that night. And I got home, and I had to meet them within an hour, and so like got home, changed clothes, repacked, drove back out to meet them, and then was on the road to Moab right away.
And let's just lay it out there that this is Nikki has 35 years of climbing experience with ice, so this is not something that most people are, going to be able to just go out and solo or climb something like that.
This one's John Cardwell, in Carbondale. Years ago, I helped teach one of the rock and ice photo camps. It was like a 4-day photo camp that Rock and Ice magazine, which now no longer exists, used to put on, and they had the 510 Adidas team out there, and there were a lot of first ascents that Dwayne Rowley had bolted but hadn't sent all of them, and some that he had sent that were in the 13 plus 14 minus range that then a lot of these athletes were trying to do. And this ended up as a cover for a guidebook for the area.
I was going to say, that looks like a cover.
Yeah, fun experience. That was my first time teaching a multi-day photo workshop, and learned a lot from that.
How did you find this angle? Because I think that's the other thing, is just that pure like profile of the rock, and then the profile of his body. Like, how did you sort of come across that?
Yeah, so this was a steep overhanging climb that was kind of on an arête, and if I remember right, we were probably 600 feet off the ground. It's a really tiered
wow.
wall that's like 1,000 feet tall or so, and each tier has climbs on it.
Okay.
And I was on a tier a little below where he's at, but then I think I jugged a fixed line to get a little higher advantage, so it wasn't shooting up as much, it was more across from it. I don't know, one of those. I don't think anyone had been on this one yet, but I could just see the features. I could see the draws where they were hanging, and like, okay, well, if I can see the draws, I should be able to see most of his body. And so just kind of took a chance getting in position, and it worked out.
Yeah.
This one, this is on Grand Island, out in Michigan. I was out there a few days early to do a photo shoot right before the Michigan Ice Fest. Like, this isn't always accessible, but the lake, when it freezes over, you can hire a local to take you on a snowmobile across the lake and drop you off, and you arrange time to get picked back up. And it's just massive walls of ice, and the lighting coming through the clouds was just so beautiful, and like the contrast to that red and yellow on there.
Do you find that like you have to shift the way you think about light? Ice climbing versus like sport climbing, where it's light 14 hours a day. Like how do you kind of manage the light in the different seasons?
I mean, I definitely, because there's so much white, because there's so much reflective surface, I definitely underexpose a lot when I'm photographing ice and snow compared to summer climbs. I know there's going to be really dramatic contrast, and I try to use that as much as possible. It's hard because if someone, is buying their kit and they're spending $400 or $500 for their pants and the same for their jackets, you can't really say, oh, like, hey, put,
Yeah.
bring another jacket. I can't control where the ice forms. It's just so much more limited that I have to kind of work within that. And a lot of times sun on ice isn't always safe. So I don't get as many photos of sunny ice as I do sunny rock climbing.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Like a lot of the ice climbing shots are a little more overcast, a little more like diffused light.
Yeah, this is one of the things I love about winter too, is the wildlife. There's less people out, and I have so many close wildlife encounters, often with animals that I don't see as often in the summer. And
Yeah, because they
I don't know.
stand out like a sore thumb in the winter.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it was just a really cool stare down with this mama moose. Um,
Nice.
and
What? How
I don't know.
long of a lens is that?
I think this one I had when I'm not specifically going out to try to take wildlife, I normally carry like a 70 to 300 zoom, and
Hmm.
it isn't as high a quality, but I can keep it in my pack really easily. This was Imlay Canyon in Zion. It had like 26 rappels or so in there, and just it was, I don't know, there was five of us or so going down through that. I don't do a whole lot of canyoneering because I think it's super scary. But the lighting can be so amazing, and it was just such a cool, unique position that had to have him stop and took a handful of frames.
Wow. How do you keep your camera like safe? Do you have like a waterproof bag that you have it in?
Yeah, I had a waterproof camera bag that then I also put in a dry bag as well, and I had to be very specific about when I pulled it out. Like if I saw something just spontaneous, I couldn't always get my camera out in time. Yeah, another one. This was fall in the Uintas, and I don't know. I love running into mountain goats when I'm up there. This was on Mont Blanc, on the Italian side, so it's Monte Bianco instead of Mont Blanc, above Cumiere, and we were on the Giant's Tooth, the Dent de Jean, and rappelling down when I saw these folks on this ridge line,
Yeah.
and just have always loved those really cool black and white Branford Washburn style
Mm.
photos, and so
And I
had to
think like
trip.
if anybody has any interest in alpine photography, glacier travel, snow and ice and rock in like an alpine environment like Chamonix in that area, the Mont Blanc Massif is such a good place because you can access so many different points within the Mont Blanc Massif, and you can see, and there's so many climbs everywhere that often wherever you are, you can see a party on another route and often get
Yeah,
something like this. I've never seen this specific shot though.
yeah, it's just, I don't know, like, always try to have my camera on me. Yeah, this is Savannah Cummings, who's an amazing photographer herself, a North Face athlete. We were climbing together, and I don't know. Again, it's like one of those that could be kind of one of those belay shots, but to me, it's more of a portrait. And I don't know. I think sometimes portraits, I like portraits where people are just kind of static and like in a traditional portrait style, but sometimes ones like this are just as interesting, if not more so, where there's just other things going on.
And that one has that, I feel like it has that touch of sepia toning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I put a
That
little
that
bit
that
in there.
elevate it elevates the moment even more.
Yeah, there was amazing backlighting coming through the clouds and the storm behind that just gave this cool look, and it just, I don't know, it just kind of worked. I'll often play around with images and I'll do multiple versions of it to see what I like. I think in the last episode I kind of talked about personal projects, and this is my friend Kim Hall. She's a potter. Her Instagram is Alpine Earthworks, and I've been working on a project. It's been multiple years where I'm trying to document every aspect from start to finish of her making her pottery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool. I don't know, documenting other artists and what they're doing, and getting to play around with light and dramatic subjects is another one. I've got a whole series of these, but being able to focus on something different than the climbing photography that I do day in and day out. And I definitely learned stuff by trying to storytell something completely different than what I normally do. Early on, portraits, I was afraid of portraits. Was uncomfortable getting close with people, was worried that I would share too much, and that kind of hid behind the camera. But portraits are so important to telling a full story. And this is Devon Dabney, and he was just goofing around, and he happened to have brought his grill when we were out bouldering one day, and we did a bunch of portraits without it, and he's like, "Hey, can I pop in my grill?" I'm like, "Sure." And then just like, let's play it up. And
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, I love photos like this that just are a snapshot of who someone is and captures their personality. This was also that same day. And
it's amazing, like, you got both those images in the same day, and they're just couldn't be more different. I mean, similar in like kind of, portrait taking up the similar amount of space. You got the rock background, but they're just like, just different worlds.
Yeah. This is Brianna Blanchard, I think Dirtbag Mama on Instagram. Like, just super strong climber, boulderer, and like doing a lot of amazing advocacy. And I don't know, it was just such a powerful, beautiful pose. And like, her eyes are just so amazing. I've done a handful of portraits of her, and like, I haven't taken a bad photo of her at all.
There's some people who are just like that.
I know. I'm jealous.
Now, did you have to direct her for that? Or was that something you pulled the camera out and she just...
I directed a little bit, but there's a handful of things. I kind of have a routine, I guess, almost with people that, like, okay, let's turn slightly to the side, now the other, like, cross your arms, uncross your arms, put your hands on your hips. Like, what do you normally do with your hands? I kind of joke around, ask people, have you heard a good joke lately? And often that's enough for them to start laughing. I'll ask people, like, tell me about your significant other right now. Like, how did you meet? What do you like about them? Tell me about your pet. Like, things that I'm trying to get emotion to come out. Yeah, this one's Catherine Vanderford. This was one that, like, I had been wanting to hit this hillside at peak wildflower season for years, and finally made it happen. I had been trail running out there, I think, a couple days earlier, and saw that the wildflowers were perfect along the trail, and talked Catherine into getting up super early and hiking up a mile to get in position for sunrise. And then we sat there for like 20-30 minutes waiting for the sun to come up over the mountain to get this, and it was just such a beautiful spot.
Yeah, and I feel like I love the clouds in that image. The clouds.
Yeah, I got lucky.
Texture that is just, really plays up the sun too.
Yeah. This was from a Brooks running photo shoot that I did last year. They really wanted to play up mud and trail running, and flew out to Seattle, and it had been sunny and dry for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I spent all day location scouting, trying to find a place that was actually muddy. And we were down in this ravine that there was just a little bit of mud, and so I brought a couple gallon jugs of water to reinforce some of these spots. And like, I got super detailed. I used Gaia, which is a mapping software that we use a lot in guiding and that. And like, I made pins in all the spots where there was water or where I thought they would be a good photo. And like, we hit all of those really quickly, and you made the best out of the limited amount of terrain that fit the photo brief as possible.
That's kind of amazing. You said you were in Seattle
Yeah,
and you had to like look for mud and look for
I
what.
know. Like, go figure that
Yeah.
when they want a muddy photo shoot in that
There's
area,
no
of
mud
course
to
it's
be
going to be
found.
dry.
I
Yeah,
mean, but again, another great lesson. Like you got to plan for all of it and be ready to adapt. And I mean, this shot's sick. Like I'm curious. Like again, is this a shot that you had in your mind?
it was. Yeah, and I had, I think, 3 or 4 runners. I think that was 3, and we were in this spot for probably an hour. Like, this it looks like this puddle's deep, but it's actually really shallow. And there was maybe a foot and a half circle that had a decent little pool of water, and I kept reinforcing it by adding more water to it. And it was tricky because like the runners had to perfectly hit that, and sometimes they would overstep or understep that, and then I had to be, in and have the right shutter speed and everything to keep things sharp. And it was a lot more difficult because it was also really low light down in there, to really get that. So we spent a long time just trying to get this one right. If we'd had a lot more mud, probably would have been a lot easier to get this. But because it was just such a small little puddle, the timing from everybody had to be perfect.
Oh,
Again,
wow.
another like personal project. Marina, in a way, she's an amazing tattoo artist, and tried to go in to her work and photograph her a couple times. Doing the whole process, start to finish, of a tattoo, and
Wow.
stuff like that just keeps me excited about going back to the climbing photography. This was a travel portrait. Um, I've never been comfortable doing like long lens street photography. Like, I asked permission beforehand, and it's why I have eye contact in almost all of my portraits. It's because it's still kind of a collaboration with people, and I don't know, I just love the lighting in that one.
Really quickly on that portrait, what about when you're somewhere where you don't speak the language? You just kind of
So
like point the camera, or yeah, how do you handle that?
I carry a small little notebook, and I'll have someone who can speak and write in that language help me with translation. I'll usually write out, "Hey, my name is Nikki Smith. I'm a photographer. Can I take your portrait?" And I'll have that in English, and then I'll have that in whatever language, whatever country I'm in that language. And then I'll also have a follow-up. If you want me to send you photos afterwards, please write your contact info in there. And then I'll just show that to people. And if, sometimes they want to see it, sometimes not, and sometimes they say no. Yeah, just having that is just a couple sentences, and it's not too hard. You can use Google Translate to get that a lot of times.
Yeah, that's a genius idea.
This is Holly Hanson out at Lake Blanche in Big Cottonwood. This ended up being a cover of Trail Runner.
That also looks like a cover.
Yeah. Yeah, this was one I went out there 2 or 3 times to figure out the exact time. This was a little before sunset. By sunset, there just isn't great lighting. And Holly and I went out there once together, and I think we had a lot of cloud cover, and so the photo didn't work out. And so we went back out another week later or so, and finally, like, everything lined up perfectly, and the
Yeah.
clouds
The
that
clouds
day were
nailed that
perfect.
one. They're perfect. So
Yeah.
I do want to kind of touch briefly because I feel like I've said it a couple times, and I just want you to give sort of your perspective because I keep saying, oh, it looks like a cover. Tell me from your perspective, like what makes a good cover, and why this image and the other
Oh,
climbing image are sort of naturally become covers.
yeah. That it's funny because for my personal style, covers are very difficult for me. I don't necessarily envision images that way very well, which I think has been a little bit of a detriment to my career. I really like landscapes, horizontals with people really small in them
Hmm.
is kind of more my favorite thing. I went into this one thinking that I could pull it off as a vertical. For a cover, what really helps this is the sky can take text, and so that was where Trail Runner went, and there wasn't a lot of stuff to obstruct that tidal mast there. And then the bottom can take text, the barcode, all the information that they need to put on there very easily in this, and it's not all jumbled. Like there's clear separation between the sky and the ridge line, and then there's separation and interesting colors all throughout, but it doesn't come across cluttered
Hmm.
either because of, I don't know, the transitions just in uniformity of the color where it's at. So this was City of Rocks, just got amazing cloud cover, and then this little spire got amazing sunset light, but then there were enough ridge lines and other little towers around it that the bottom of the frame just went into complete shadow, and there's just so much texture in that, and like that green shirt and red helmet just really stand out against the rock color there.
There's something too about the like shape of the shadow. Like
Yeah,
the brush, the like trees and bushes kind of come down and they frame the rock a little bit.
yeah, I just feel like there's just a lot of drama in there, and I feel like even his body positioning kind of mimics the shape of the rock,
Hmm.
like that arch in his
Yeah,
back, and
totally.
then the leg on the right hand side kind of mimics the shape of the tower,
Hmm.
being kind of more slabby at the top and then straight down. Like it just there's symmetry.
Yeah, the body position and the location on the rock of the climber is what really, cements this as like a standout image.
Yeah, and I think it's not always something you can plan out, but I think if you start looking through photos that you really like, I think oftentimes there is symmetry in the body position of the athlete or subject and the surroundings in some way,
Hmm.
that it's kind of a subconscious thing that don't always even catch it or plan for it when we're photographing, but it's just something like, oh yeah, this lines up, this is the frame I want, and we don't really understand why maybe until afterwards, but
Hmm.
there's so many things that can go into play into making a photo really stand out, and it's not always easy to articulate or plan for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ice nudes.
Ice nudes. Yeah, this is a very personal project that I haven't really shared. I've been doing this for years. There's a climbing photographer. He was a stone master um, in Yosemite in the late 70s, early 80s. He was an amazing photographer, and he started this project he called Stone Nudes. And he was photographing women on boulder problems and routes, and they're just, fine art, black and white style photos. And he would do a calendar every year. And I remember, like, it was 2009, I was at the trade show and had lunch with him and some other friends, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to? I'm gonna do a Stone Dudes thing. Like, do you want to climb Midnight Lightning in this?" And it was like, "There's no way I am not getting naked. I hated my body. I was not comfortable, and it was just like, no." And then after I came out, I saw that he was doing a book project, with his 20, 30 years of stone nudes, and just like, oh, I want to be in that. Like, I just want to be another body. Like, there's never any names on these photos. Usually don't always see faces, and it's just a beautiful photo of someone doing what they love outside. And it never worked out for us to do a photo shoot together, so I started doing it myself. But then it was like, well, how can I do it different? And I decided, I was like, well, I ice climb, so I'll start doing ice nudes. And so I set up my camera on an interval timer, and I either go out alone, or if I'm with people, I'll typically do it towards the end of our time climbing together, and like, hey, like, I'll catch up to you on the way or back at the car. Like, give me 20 minutes, give me 30 minutes, and if you don't hear from me, you can come close and yell. But I solo these routes, and sometimes I have to climb up and down multiple times, make sure the body positioning is right. But there's something weird. Like, I can be cold and scared all day sometimes ice climbing, but as soon as I take off my clothes and do this climb, like, I don't know, everything else disappears.
You're not cold anymore.
I'm not.
Take your
No,
clothes off. You're not cold anymore. That's
I know.
amazing.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
But I think many people struggle with body image, and like, for the majority of my climbing career, I didn't get to see me as myself. I saw, a character I was playing, and so I've been doing a whole series of these, mostly ice nudes, but some stone nudes, just really for me to see me doing what I love. And I'm really trying to focus on just creating something beautiful and just existing within that space.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Nikki, thank you so much. I am excited to see what you do in the future.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been great talking. Need to know who's going to interview you for this, though.
I'm going to interview myself. I'm good at asking questions. I'm less good at answering them myself, so it would be a good exercise. But like you said, like as artists, we have to learn how to talk about our work, and that's a reason that I wanted to even start this podcast. It's an excuse for me to practice, and so I do probably need to practice talking about my own work as well, but that's kind of scary.
Definitely. You're an inspiring person. Like, you've done so many different things, like an amazing writer, photographer, editor, filmmaker, and climber. Like, you've done so many different things.
Well, thank you, Nikki.
Yeah,
We'll see you soon, okay?
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for the time. Bye.
Bye.